Hello. So today I'd just like to give some commentary on a grand finals run that I had in this tournament that took place at the end of last year in the game Guilty Gear Accent Core XX plus R. This was a beginner slash intermediate tournament put on by the Guilty Gear plus R Discord server, and this took place about a month or maybe 2 months after the release of Rollback Netcode for that game. So, as you can imagine, there was a large influx of players wanting to get their feet wet into the game. I myself was one of them. I have only really been playing the game for about a month at this point. And so, essentially, how this tournament worked was that unless you were a well-known or legacy player or had placed well in tournaments in the past, in the game's history, you were open to enter. So unless you were one of those big names, you were able to enter the tournament. And so today I'd just like to talk about the grand finals set that I had against the Zappa player, and just talk about my thought processes in winning in this high pressure environment, and sort of what came down to giving the win. So let's get into the replay. So one thing that I should explain before we start is that this is the grand final set, and I was in winner's side. So that means that we play best 3 out of 5, and if my opponent wins the best 3 out of 5 set, then the bracket is essentially reset, and we'd play another 3 out of 5 set. And the winner of that set would be crowned, the grand finals winner. And so going into it, I had a lead. You could say I have to lose essentially 2 sets. He only has to lose 1. But you'll see that it wasn't exactly that simple. Couldn't really clutch it out so easily. So we're just looking at some of the footage here of our first match. It's kind of just a scramble in the beginning. We're just trying to feel each other out. I didn't really have much experience playing against Zappa. I've only really been playing plus R for about a month at that point, although I've had a lot of experience with Exerd, several years at that point. And there are going to be specific instances of this set where you can also see that my opponent is also a Guilty Gear player, if not necessarily a plus R player. And so that kind of comes through in their gameplay and sort of what happens during the set. But you can see that, these scramble situations are being won pretty evenly on both sides. It's really, things are going down to the wire. The neutral is just throwing out big hitboxes, seeing, if your opponent is going to walk into them and whatnot. So I should say that I'm playing May. In plus R, she's really fun because, she does a lot more damage. She's much faster. Something about this game, the pace is really fast, and a lot of the properties on May's moves are really, good for stun and killing your opponent quickly. And so I abuse that a lot throughout this tournament, partly due to the fact that there's a lot of character unfamiliarity at the release of a game, but also because, in shorter sets and tournaments often have short 2 out of 3s leading up to the top 8. You give your opponent less time to adapt to what you're doing, and as a result of that, I was able to get pretty far in this specific instance. But as you can see, we're already 1-1 in the rounds. There isn't really too much to talk about as far as specific strategies in this first match. Just because I don't really know what Zappa does, and he doesn't really know what I'm doing. You can see that I hit him with the cross up there. He was kind of, mashing on wake up, and so the neutral isn't really refined, I would say. But you can see that he's got me in a pretty bad position here. He has his sword summon equipped, which comes with a DP, and also, his normals are really ranged. I was able to get out of it there, but you'll see another example later in the set where he really uses that to his advantage. So there, he essentially hit a DP, and when you hit enough DPs as Zappa, you are able to summon, or if you hit enough special moves, you're able to summon that large thing called Rao. And at that point in the game, I just had no idea what Rao did, and you could see there that he did a no mix-up on me where he crossed me up and went back on the same side, and just hit me, and I just exploded to end that first match. So you'll see that whenever he gets Rao on the screen, I essentially just lose because I have no clue what he does. And Rao has some pretty cheap tricks that cross-up is one of them. But you'll see another one later that I really never figured out in the course of this Grand Finals run. So in the second match, you can see that we're kind of getting our bearings more a little bit. One thing in particular that the Zappa player really picked up on and abused in this set is that I didn't really know how to punish his DP. And so Zappa's DP is counter hit state and recovery, which should really spell death if he whiffs it or just uses it ineffectively, especially against Mei, because she has ways to just stun you immediately if you make such a mistake. But since I was a new player, I didn't really know many of Mei's combos at this point. I think I knew like 2 or 3. And I also didn't know any of the stun routes. It was really difficult, to capitalize on those. Oh, you can see that he gets Rao here again. That is the second thing that I want to talk about. Rao's DP is just gigantic, and he abuses it whenever he gets Rao, because I really didn't know the extent to which that hitbox was so crazy. And led to a full combo, so I kept challenging it when I really shouldn't have. And you can see that I pay for it later in the final set. So at this point, you can see that I hit him with a command grab. At this point, I really started to realize that much to how I wasn't really acquainted with the matchup, he also wasn't acquainted with the matchup. So you can see that through the fact that I could fake him out with the 6H and then go for the command grab, or just, go for the command grab on a blocked 6H and he couldn't react to that. Usually if you know how to play against Mei, you know to look out for that command grab and you can punish it if I go for it. But in this case, when I saw that he wasn't punishing it, I realized, that's pretty, that's going to come in handy later. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to close out that round there. That 3H that I hit into the stagger could lead to a command grab, but at that point I didn't know that comboed. So I could have closed out the round already, and I'm paying for it right here. Thankfully, I wasn't sure what he was doing, but the wake up super was enough to take him out. So we're 1-1 again in the rounds. He's up a game, but I'm in the winner's side. He's in the loser's side. He gets dog here, and, I get sandwiched. So he's pretty good. Like, I realized after watching this, he was pretty good with controlling the dog, and using it to just take up a bunch of space on the screen. And so that's especially useful because of the fact that we're really scrambling, because we don't know how each other plays neutral, or how each of us plays neutral. And so that sort of throwing out large hitboxes and hoping the opponent runs into it is pretty legitimate strategy at this point in the game. So I get sandwiched again by the dog, and it's essentially over at that point. So he's up 2-0 in the set so far. There's a lot of close matches there. I think there were a couple opportunities where I could have really capitalized on, but because I was a new player, there was tournament pressure, and I wasn't quite familiar with the combo routing with this version of Mei. It was pretty difficult to get a bearing on this. So here I come up with an early lead, keeping him in the corner. But he gets ghosts again, and so Zappa's summon, the ghosts, are also really good. And he uses it to cross me up multiple times for Oki, and it's really effective because I just didn't know that he could do that. It's not really reactable. So if you have someone who has no clue that you're capable of crossing him up in that way, then you're just going to get a free hit. So that these are just tournament strategies here that he was relying on, which were really effective if you really don't know. So there he uses wake up super. I've used it 3 times at this point, and so he kind of caught on and started using it himself because we don't really know how to use safe jumps or bait those effectively yet. And you can see that he closed out the round there with Rao at the very end. You'll see Rao many more times throughout the set. And Rao is actually considered not to be one of Zappa's preferred summons, even though it's essentially like a something that should have been like a win condition for him. But because Zappa is so crazy in this game, and you can see Rao again, his other summons are actually considered better. But see, yeah, you can see there he keeps DPing again and again. So I wake up super because I don't know what's going on. DP, right? He's gonna do it again. Just watch. Oh no, never mind. He just went in and killed me. So this is the point where he reset the bracket actually. So now we're back to 0-0, both in loser's side. One last 3 out of 5 is going to take the tournament. But you can see here just how how clueless I was against Rao. Like I really didn't understand how to deal with that DP. I actually didn't even know that was a DP. But I learned that afterwards. I just knew it was something that I just couldn't contest. And at this point, he had just 3-0'd me, so it was quite worrying at this point in the tournament. You can see here he hit me with a cross up and comboed off of that. That's pretty, that's pretty cheap for someone who doesn't really know that the character is capable of that. But that's why I had to burst there. That angled me into the corner, which was great, but he messed up his Oki, so I could throw him on wake up. Got a pretty okay combo there, but I didn't really know the timing for Zappa, which is another pretty unfortunate thing about this game. When you've only been playing for about a month, you're not going to have timing for each individual character. And this is just an example. There, you see another DP from Rao, and this summon did so much work for him. Another DP. I just kept running in like an idiot. You can actually wait out that summon, but he can also chip you. So it's really that was not in my favor at that point. Still, I kept getting hit by the DP, and it was really, really unfortunate. So he's got me sandwiched here again. Goes for the cross up, but I had a pretty nice block there. It was just a little bit too deep of an air dash, and so I was able to see that he was going over. I was able to block it, but I'm still at a disadvantage in this round. Just trying so hard to get in. I was able to hit a 6H into command grab, got some decent damage, and him just eating that full charged 6H while staring at me. That was kind of a sort of download moment where I realized that his defense was very weak. Mine was as well, because of the character unfamiliarity. You can see there, that's an example of how crazy that DP hitbox is. I was directly over him. You cannot get over that DP. It is, at that point, so he's up 1-0. We're both on loser's side. At that point, I was really starting to get worried because, I'm trying to problem solve how to get around Rao's DP, and it's just not happening. So I just had to pray that he doesn't get it throughout the remainder of this set, or that I'm able to avoid it. Because that was just, at that point, I was like, wow, that's ridiculous. But we have to just soldier on here, trying to weigh our options. The information about the 6H and the command grab always really hitting him was really what saved me here, because even if I was also, here's the command grab again, dropped the combo, but still was able to recover it slightly there. But as I was saying, the information that he was really weak against these sorts of offensive options kind of was able to clutch out the win for me eventually, but we'll get to that. So that round was kind of sloppy, dropped a lot of combo opportunities and kill opportunities, but at that point, when it snowballed to that extent, it's really hard for your opponent to recover, despite dropping a bunch of combos, so I was able to, seal that one out. But we're still, behind, after getting essentially 4-0'd, the opponent is winning 4 games in a row at this point, so it's not exactly, not exactly looking good for me here. Right, so it's more of just the same really trying to navigate offense against this character. You can see he's zoning me out with the sword summon here. This is where the sword really shines, and if you can control the sword really well, then it's very difficult to get to him, especially with that DP recalling it. You can see here I was not able to get in on him after locking me out with that sword. So we're 1-1 in the rounds. See, that's the 6H again. I was like, wow, was able to stun him, get a free combo. So I learned later that actually when you get a stun in that bay, you can actually instant kill and end the round instantly. But I didn't really understand the timing, and I didn't know what situations would be a guaranteed instant kill. And if you miss an instant kill, your meter goes away, and you're essentially screwed for the rest of the round. It's essentially a free win for your opponent if you mess it up. So I went with the safer, large combo. Thankfully, was able to seal that one out. So right now it's 1-1 in the final set of Grand Finals. Finally won my first game in 5 games. So at this point, I wasn't really resting on my laurels or anything. It was just, I have to push this lead. Another charged 6H that hit, basically for free there. Is really starting to, add up for my opponent as well. Right. Yeah, another faked 6H into command grab. This time I hit the combo. Of course, he was getting a little wise to the fact that I was using 6H so much because I really, was trying to press that advantage, and so he used the wake up super, took out a good chunk of life. Thankfully, it seems like I'm doing a better job of getting in at this point. And if I can get in and press the advantage, then it was really hard for him to kind of address that. So that's the thing with sort of people being new to a specific game, even though they've played fighting games for a long time, is that you can learn your character really well because you're used to playing similar characters or similar archetypes, or you're just really knowledgeable at fighting games. But fighting against another character or the matchup knowledge component, you can only get with experience. And so, in a way, we're developing that right now. But for playing a game seriously for about a month, you're not really going to know how to play against the majority of the cast effectively. And so that applies to both myself and my opponent here, where the stuff with Rao, the giant ghost summon, really messing me up and making me pay for it during the tournament. That's an example. And also how my opponent can't really block these very basic but high damaging mix-ups. There it is again. From me, there's a stun into death. Is really, sort of the hallmark of why this is considered, a new player tournament. So now I'm up 2-1. So, in the past 6 games, he's won 4 and I've won 2 in a row. But I only need to win 1 more to win the entire tournament. So at this point, it's kind of looking a bit better for me. But it could easily turn if my opponent is able to get Rao. So you can see that he air through'd me there. That's when I kind of knew, and maybe it happened before, but that's when I knew that this was a Guilty Gear player. Because in Guilty Gear, how throws work is that you hold forward or backward and press H, and they're 1 frame. And so, one of it's essentially your fastest move. And there are many Guilty Gear type situations, for lack of a better word, where, you can recognize where you can throw, essentially. And so that was a pretty obvious throw point. And the fact that he was able to capitalize on that is, a tell for someone who's played fighting games or who's played Guilty Gear before. And so at that point I was like, oh crap, I can't really get away with a lot of the being sloppy on Oki or with my air movement because he's going to punish me with that. So I'm down around there in this game. It's not looking so good for me, and you can see that he has almost all of his summons needed for Rao. This is kind of looking bad. At this point, I just need to get in and lock him down. Thankfully, he ate another 6H. Really, really bad for him that he keeps eating these. Ooh, was able to... Oh, that was really lucky. Oh, no, but... I dropped my punish. I could have ended the round there. Thankfully, I didn't have to pay for it again. It's just so sloppy. Yeah, but thankfully I was able to clutch out a couple scramble situations, and thankfully it didn't make me pay for that mistake. Right, so we're 1-1 here. This is, I'm up 2-1 at this point. He's blocking the 6Hs more. You can see that that was an example. And so at this point, I'm starting to think, like, okay, it's not going to work that many more times. I need to finish it right now. But now I'm cornered with the sword again, which is really bad in this situation. So you can see that he's pretty good with controlling the sword. And I'm not really sure how to deal with this because the sword doesn't have a hurt box, right? You can't fight Zappa when you're across the screen being pressured by the sword. So I was pretty weak to that sort of offense, and you can see here that I'm really, I really threw that round because of it. And when he got the ghosts, which is Zappa's best zoning tool, right after the sword, at that point it was basically over. I ate that ghost to the face. And so now we're 2-2. This is the final game in the grand finals set. And, at this point we're both really feeling a lot of pressure. This is basically for all the marbles. So you can see there that I blocked the cross up. It was, finally, after eating it every time in the grand final match, I was able to, finally block it. Of course, the Zappa player is also adapting really well. Wake up super whenever he sees that I'm 6Hing on his wake up, which is really good because the 6H is what I've been relying on for damage at this point. You can see here, he does it again. He's able to get Rao, and so, this match is over, right? Or this round is over. He has a Rao. He hits me with the DP, as always, and just takes me out. So now I'm one round away from losing the tournament, which is really nerve-wracking at this point. And I'm thinking right now that it's... Oh, you can see here he DP'd again. He DP'd my 6H, so he's learning. And it's the worst time for him to be doing that. I'm thinking at this point, though, that I need to prevent him from getting Rao, or else I'm going to lose. But in doing so, I'm trying to run in and basically pressure him, not letting him get that started. But in doing so, I'm opening myself up to a lot of his offense as well. And his, being reactive on defense is really good because he has that DP. And so at this point, I'm at a life deficit. It's starting to look really bad. It's looking pretty bad right now. We both don't have burst. He's zoning me to the best of his ability, trying to get me out. I'm eating, dog uppercuts to the face. I have, basically no health, but, thankfully I was able to get a jump in. He ate a 6H and then whiffed a burst. This is the worst case scenario for him because he's going into the final round of the tournament with no burst meter. And, essentially just ate that 6H and gave up that round. So at this point, I'm feeling like, okay, I actually have a pretty good advantage in this round. I just need to not make any stupid mistakes, and I'm good. You can see here that I'm off to a pretty good start. I hit the command grab. He has essentially no health left, and I'm at full. I feel like he was potentially a bit shaken up by that last round because, if you play Guilty Gear or if you play fighting games, and you understand just how big of a mistake that was huge. And so, being shook like that can really affect your nerves and, make you play worse in the next round. Of course, he recovered pretty quickly, and he's activating his clutch factor here because going from full health to, less than half was, pretty good achievement. But at that point, it was essentially over. I was able to clutch it out. And so, yeah, that's it for the replay. All in all, it was a good tournament run. And it was, the prize pool was pretty large at that point. I think it was around $300. So, it was definitely my biggest win as far as, prize money. And it was just all around a fun, showcase because it's not often that grand final sets contain a loser's or a bracket reset, and also goes down to the last round. So, in this case, I was able to clutch it out. I'm really thankful. And yeah, that's essentially it. So thanks for listening.